What's going on, fellow A-Plusers? It is I, your Morphinominal host, Adam Perez, back once again to go ahead and wrap up the final episode to the Ultraman Trigger series, as we're about to go ahead and give you our review for episode number 25, as we certainly say farewell to this particular series. Remember, guys, at the end of the day, these are simply just my A-plus opinions, but I always want to go ahead and know yours. What did you guys think of the finale? Let your thoughts be known in the live chat or the comment section box below after this particular video has aired. But it is unfortunate to have to say farewell to Ultraman Trigger. This was a series that I was actually rather fond of, probably out of the current tokusatsu series that I'm currently watching right now. Definitely my favorite, to be perfectly honest with you guys. I've really enjoyed the ride. I am a sucker for some great drama and some great sci-fi elements, and Ultraman Trigger really had a little bit of everything that I was looking for. Now remember, I am a newcomer to the Ultraman franchise. This is honestly my very first time dabbling in the franchise as far as sitting down and watching an entire series for itself, and as a first-time viewer, this was a really great experience. Like, for me, this was very easy to kind of come on board. Granted, I did have myself quite a few questions in regards to some of the cameos and some of the special appearances and crossovers that we've kind of had, right? I think it can probably be a little intimidating for brand new fans into the Ultraman franchise that really have no idea who some of these particular characters are. But I felt like for the most part, it still added to a really great ride. Even though I did have some question marks, I'm quite thankful that I definitely had the support of you viewers and big Ultraman fans also to kind of help navigate through some of my questions that I certainly might have had. So thank you very much for you guys certainly being patient with me as a new Ultraman fan. But I still think this is a great series to kind of come on board. The fact that it is sort of a remake for a more modern time in regards to the classic Ultraman Tiga series. I thought if you're going to title it New Generation Tiga, I thought they certainly lived up to it, to certainly say the least. Now again, I haven't personally watched Tiga. Maybe you guys certainly have and have your own personal thoughts in regards to it, but as a first timer, I really enjoyed what we wind up getting here for this particular series, enough to where I definitely will be back to definitely go ahead and maybe not only tackle other Ultraman series, but definitely the next iteration and the next one up that we definitely have coming. So I'm not quite exactly sure when new Ultraman series drops. I kind of dig the idea of a 25 episode arc, giving us certainly some time to settle down and think about what we just watched before diving into another series. I mean, don't get me wrong, I also love the concept of how Super Sentai literally is like round the clock. Once one series ends, you got another one certainly waiting for you. I enjoyed that element as well, but I think when it comes to Ultraman Trigger, it does kind of avoid more filler episodes, I feel like, and if anything, it definitely has a story in mind that it certainly wants to tell and definitely gets to the point. So for that, I'm definitely grateful as a viewer. When it comes to episode number 25, listen, I certainly enjoyed this episode. There is elements of it that I wish were maybe a little bit more epic, a little bit more drawn out than it was. I think a part of me was keeping my fingers crossed, hoping that we would get elements of like an extended episode, if you will, maybe like an additional 3 minutes, an additional 5 minutes. I think probably really could have gone a long way, but just based off of all the characters, because honestly, I don't really have a character in here that I'm not a fan of. In my notes, one of the things I talked about was really just the gut select team. I think the idea of having great supporting characters, great actors to portray those characters, always fun-loving. I love the constant support. Clearly I'm sure there were some moments of bickering and joking around and things like that, but for the most part, this team was always together, always on point, always having some sort of plan, being very encouraging to one another, making sure that everybody was doing their job properly. The captain was hella impressive. The faith that he sort of puts in the remainder of his team. He doesn't micromanage. He truly trusts all his comrades, and it really kind of showcased itself really well in here. Maybe that's the part of me that maybe I've watched my fair share of CW Arrowverse shows, right, where you've got your team and they seem to bicker every freaking season. So the idea of actually having a really well-oiled machine in regards to Gut Select really did it for me. Like, really kind of helped put this series over the top, because, you know, I think when you already have great, solid, fundamental characters like a Kango and like an Aikido, and the people that really get a lot of the screen time, if you will, I think also having great supporting characters adds a ton to a series. And I think this definitely helped Ultraman Trigger in this sense, like getting the opportunity to see Yuna in this episode, embracing the plan that she wind up having of still absorbing the Eternity Core, but siphoning it over to the Nurse Desi, trying to quelch some of the concerns that her father and Chairman Shizuma certainly might have, right? Really showcasing her growth and how confident she certainly is in her abilities and things like that. I mean, she was literally just about to sacrifice herself in the previous episode, right? But understanding that you've got friends, you've got people that are going to support you, we can figure other ways out, and being able to showcase her growth, also getting to see Aikido step up and having confidence in the technology that he built in regards to the Nurse Desi, being able to contain that type of power and utilize it against somebody like Carmeara, seeing the rest of the team just get hyped for the plan that was certainly on board, that they were certainly all on board with, and seeing it work to perfection in here. Again, I've been really hella impressed with the Gut Select team, certainly overall. So I definitely want to go ahead and give them a little bit of kudos. And honestly, was a little bit of an element of disbelief at the idea that the Gut Select team could single-handedly take down both Giants of Darkness, but I sort of equate it to, it's not really them, right? Like, it's almost like an illusion, if you will, of dark energy power. So it feels very much like these Giants of Darkness weren't even at their full strength, because it wasn't necessarily them themselves so much as just some more, I don't want to even say like a mirage, but just their ability sort of being used for other purposes. So in that regards, it made a little bit of sense that you have the Gut Select team using their, well, not necessarily the spark lens, but their guns, which we definitely have seen pull up quite a wallop, if you will, definitely have some power behind them. But it was like, for me, it was just really cool to see like the captain take on Dargon, you know, like shooting him in the knee, then in the shoulder, sort of thing. Just really systematic and sort of breaking down a Giant of Darkness and showcasing that they all have got some sort of skill. Even seeing like the engineer get in there, was it Tension, I believe his name is. Even seeing Marluru kind of jump in between everybody and start firing off at Hoodrum and things like that. So it was just really cool to kind of see the lengths and the determination that the Gut Select team will certainly go through, really having no fear, well thought out plan, and getting the mission accomplished, sort of thing. So great supporting characters. It definitely worked for me here in this episode. For me, the Trigger Truth design was actually pretty cool. I love the idea of Kengo learning from his battles with Carmeara, in the sense of, you know, hey, look, she's harnessing darkness and light in order to kind of combat her. We've sort of got to do the same, right? And seeing him understand the situation that he's in, remembering the previous episode where we saw him pass on his power to Ignis as Dark Trigger, and combining the light and dark in that situation. Now to be able to kind of see it in Ultraman Trigger form, I thought the costume design was pretty legit. Like, I like the idea that it still kept its subtleties of the original costume, but definitely highlighted it with like some dark elements, and even like more spots of gold shielding and things like that through the rest of the outfit. It wasn't overly elaborate, but I think it looked great on Kengo. And honestly, just that last battle and sequence that we wind up getting of seeing him take on Carmeara in the sea was pretty cool. Like, just the henshin sequence alone, while they're on top of the Nurse Desi, and we see Kengo acquiring the darkness powers, and he literally like just leaps off as he winds up transforming. I thought it was just an epic transformation, and then him hitting that sort of perfect superhero landing and really showcasing the new transformation that we wind up getting when it comes to Trigger Truth. So again, great costume design, showing the light and the dark elements in here, and again, another fantastic plan, and it wind up working out for me because I was actually a really big fan of the action sequences here in this episode. You know I gave some gripe to the idea that, man, I kind of wish it was Carmeara in her human form per se, instead of just this big gigantic monster. I did at least give them props for the costume design for the monster, which looked really great. But again, there is some weight to the costume. There is some level of destruction and devastation that happens in here that at least lets you know that this is quite the formidable foe that Ultraman is certainly sort of fighting against. So in that regards, it definitely had that big finale, bombastic sort of feel. But getting the opportunity to see very early on in this episode, when the battle continues in the city, just all of the destruction, seeing both of the Guts Wing and the Falcon hard at work, getting to see Chairman Shizuma getting in on the battle too, really cool, and loving how they assisted both Ultramen in that particular moment. I thought was pretty neat. Even getting an opportunity to see Trigger in his Glitter Eternity form trying to harness the Eternity Core power directly that was sprouting out. I thought that was imagery wise a great image, and just a great scene selection in regards to seeing him suck up the energy itself, him literally harboring it before he goes ahead and actually launches his strike that winds up just having a devastating explosion, which, if you ask me, probably took that city off the map, if anything. But I thought they really handled it perfectly well, getting to see that Carmeara was unscathed at that attack, and then of course having to face her against in her Trinity Truth. I just thought the open sea selection as to where they had the battle just truly worked for me. One, it kind of showcased just their size, the fact that literally their feet are in the middle of the ocean, right, and the rest of their body certainly isn't. I think it just goes to show you just how big these characters certainly are. But I don't know, I just really love the setting for Carmeara versus Ultraman Trigger out inside the middle of the ocean. And while I personally complained about the idea of Carmeara not being in her human form, I do at least appreciate the idea that in this episode there was at least a brief moment of Carmeara and Kengo talking a little bit more, right? There's a part of me that wished that more of that dialogue was expressed. I really wanted to kind of see that push from Kengo to maybe try and bring her to the light, try and talk his way through maybe saving her or bringing her down from the ledge of just wanting to destroy everything. I really would have loved to have seen that back and forth pull just a little bit more, but I did think the moment that we did at least get to the end was rather sentimental, and just a really good moment of seeing Kengo, handing out his hand to kind of help Carmeara up. The idea of her getting a glimpse of what the light possibly looks like, if you will, seeing her body sort of disintegrate in his arms. Just a really great, beautiful moment to kind of show that, there's always got to be a perfect balance, right? You can't have all light, you can't have all darkness. It really needs to be a great sort of balance to all of that, and it definitely worked to the benefit of Kengo in here, and kind of proving his point to Carmeara. So a great sentimental moment, but I do think it was maybe a missed opportunity to have, because it became so personal for Carmeara, always truly wanting to reach out to Kengo. I really would have loved to have seen that anger expressed a little bit more, and Kengo and her kind of having more of a back and forth and conversation in between all of that battle, so that would have been great to have seen. As far as the ending of this episode goes, quite emotional, getting the opportunity to see a lot of the Gut Select team crying, understanding and realizing that Kengo has kind of got to sacrifice himself, if you will, in order to bring peace finally, because the Eternity Core is still very much unstable. I was wondering in the previous episode, is anybody gonna die? How they were gonna pull that off, and just the moment between Kengo and his mom, you definitely wind up getting vibes this feels like a goodbye. This feels like Kango's going to have to sacrifice himself in order to really bring peace to everything. And that's exactly what winds up happening in here, because it is Kango that, is the first person to touch that Eternity Core. He's really the only person that can kind of give it that, I've said this word before, but the balance that it certainly needs to be harnessed properly. And so, yeah, we do see Kango having to say farewell. His damn flower finally sprouted, right? And, I had been wondering, like, what is this, a secret weapon? Is this a secret power that hasn't been unleashed? But it's literally as simple as just a friendly reminder of who Kango certainly is, right? Something that, despite the fear and the sadness that a lot of people are expressing in here, it's that damn phrase of smiley, smiley, right? That a lot of people pushed back against very early on in this season. But I do think as a motto and as a catch line for this series, it's as perfect as it possibly can be. The fact that as annoying as maybe us as viewers see it, to kind of see how much it was actually picked up by the rest of his crew, how much he actually inspired them to sort of have that mentality of wanting to save the smiles of everybody on Earth, right? Getting the opportunity to see even the little kids cheering on Ultraman, right? The smiles and the light that shines from all of that to give Ultraman Trigger his powers to fully go ahead and win and overcome, sort of thing. It just shows you the power of positivity and the idea of how far along something as simple as a smile can certainly do to one's life. And so for me, it was pretty cool to kind of see how annoyed we were as viewers, yet his message still very much getting across to the remainder of his team, to where when you go back and you look at this damn flower, it's hard not to smile when you just think of Kango and everything that he's accomplished and how many people he's saved and things like that, right? It definitely has to bring you some sort of joy and happiness, and that's all he ever wanted at the beginning of this season to the end, and he definitely fulfilled his mission in here. Like, even honestly, I think for me, the more emotional aspect, while I can understand why the Gut Select team would certainly cry, the Akito and Kango moment was it for me, at least. Always that reluctant person in Akito to showcase his appreciation for Kango, or how much his friendship truly means to him, right? And I think more than ever, we've seen over the past several episodes, anytime Kango's been in a terrible situation, Akito being terrified for him and truly worried for him. I mean, we saw it when he got trapped in the foam, right? Akito was worried about Kango. When we saw the huge explosion in the beginning of this episode, and Akito unleashes the huge scream for Kango, worried that something might have happened to him, and then even in here, understanding that Kango's got to make that sacrifice, sort of thing. There's a lot of care that definitely Akito has for Kango, and the idea of him still being reluctant, I think just shows his personality, honestly. But I think goes a long way, because I think Kango, the fact that Kango's actor and him as a character was certainly crying, I think there's definitely an appreciation between those two characters, and for me was probably the more heartfelt of anybody that had tears or was gonna feel bad or sorry for the death of Kango. That one probably got me more than anything. But yeah, the flower finally comes full circle. Everything is definitely explained in here, and so overall, satisfying conclusion. I definitely do think there were some missed opportunities, things that I think certainly should have or could have gone better, but overall, pleased with the finale and really pleased with this season overall, guys. But again, at the end of the day, these are just simply my A+ opinions. I definitely want to go ahead and know yours. If there's anything in particular out of this particular episode that I might have missed, whether that be character moments, storyline details that you guys want to further continue to talk about, please let your thoughts be known in the live chat or the comment section box below. We also have ourselves a Discord forum community. If you want to go ahead and talk about Ultraman Trigger over there, we definitely do have a section for Ultraman discussion, so certainly join us there as well. Maybe I will do an overall season 1 review of Ultraman Trigger. I won't promise that as of right now. I did talk a little bit about it overall as a series in this review. Maybe I will. It really just kind of comes down to my just the time availability. If anything, maybe I'll actually add it to a section of APlus Morphinominal, the live show that we usually do over the weekends. Maybe I will have an Ultraman Trigger review in that segment, and then maybe just clip that out and upload that separately as well. So we'll see what happens here, guys. But regardless, as long as fatherhood continues to go smoothly, and I definitely continue to have more time under my belt, you may be seeing certainly more Ultraman franchise properties pop up here on APlus Morphinominal. So definitely go ahead and stick around. And if you haven't subscribed yet, hit that subscribe button, guys. If you continue to love our content, especially as somebody that's new to Ultraman and love my perspective on things, hit that subscribe button. It definitely goes a long way, along with that like button, and definitely feel free to leave some comments so we can go ahead.